this guy's a star, and we're talking about the drummer. But of course, we also have two other stars on the stage right now. Give it up for Soha Ali Khan and Soha Kapoor. Oh, that's quite a reception. Girls and boys, the next session, we're going to be talking about relationships. Now, ask any young person in the crowd 3 things that weigh heavy on your mind. You would probably say money, career. But if there's one thing that gives you maximum heartburn, would you all agree it's relationships? Yes? Right, so that's exactly what the 2 stars we have on stage with us are going to be talking about. How does one handle relationships, commitment in the time of casual love? You're living a fast life, you don't have too much time. Do you really have time to think about, how do I make that commitment? Is it time for me to settle down? How do you deal with the big R? So let me call upon first Soha to tell us what she thinks about casual love, marriage, relationships.
Hello. So when they first asked me to come here to speak on the raz of relationships and commitment in the age or time of casual love, I sat for a very, very long time to try to think about what I could possibly say to all of you without A, getting in trouble at home or in society at large, and also how to make some kind of sense out of a subject that is so broad and so complicated because it deals with human beings who are so complicated. And my views on this changed every single hour, depending on if I was in a good mood. I'm also in a relationship, which some of you may know. So a lot of it depended on if I was in a good place in my relationship or not. And then I sat and I made some notes, many notes, because I felt that I should try and be coherent with you guys. And what I came up with were a few points. The first thing was that I don't think that it's the time of casual love. I think that in India, a lot of us perhaps think that we are very progressive and very modern, and in some ways we are, but I think when it comes to our social values, and that I think is best illustrated when you look at censorship laws, for films for example, I think those clearly indicate that as an audience we're not very mature, we're not able to handle too much. So we're still, spoon-fed a little bit, and things are made very tame for the audience. So in terms of our civic ethics as well, I don't think we've quite got there. The hypocrisy with how we bring up our sons and our daughters also illustrates that perhaps we're not as open as we like to think that we are. Of course, today there are many different kinds of more casual forms a relationship can take. And I suppose we have got to a stage whereby we can actually sit and talk about this in a forum. Maybe we couldn't do this 20 years ago. But I don't think that means that we've got to an age of casual love, in that perhaps we've got to an age of, Android phones or something. I don't know, whatever. But the other thing that didn't make sense to me also was, what is casual love? How can love be casual? So for me, it sounded like an oxymoron. Any kind of love, surely, even if it's between like a father and a son, or a husband and a wife, or a girlfriend and a boyfriend, has to be based on something that is deep and lasting, some kind of commitment, right? So how can that be casual? There can be casual relationships. And here I think it's important to make a distinction between casual, am I allowed to say sex? So I think we're supposed to make a distinction between casual sex or one-night stands that people do engage in, and casual relationships, which involves a little bit more, perhaps more time spent together, but in a less formal structure than, for example, a marriage or a long-term exclusive relationship or whatever you may choose. But I don't want to stand here and tell you guys what is right and what is wrong, because surely when it comes to something as complex as human relationships, there can't be like one size fits all. What's my wine is, your poison, and you have to choose your own wine or water or whatever, your choice of beverage. So it's important for you to discover for yourself what it is that suits you. And I think especially when it comes to relationships, it cannot just be one size fits all. So whatever I say to you now is solely what works for me. It may not work for you. And whatever I tell you now also must remain just between us and all of the media here present. Because, oh sorry. Because, as I said, I'll probably get into trouble for telling you the things that I have been going to tell you, which I probably shouldn't. But anyway. So, my take on things is, I value commitment, I value fidelity, I value loyalty, trust and honesty, but I also value excitement, fun and passion. And I think it's possible to have all of them in one relationship. I'm not unafraid of making a commitment to someone. I understand that it comes with a whole lot of baggage, that you do get your heart broken many, many times, that you do have to deal with emotional trauma. You have to compromise. You might feel that you're missing out on someone else because you've committed to someone else. You'll have to say no to a lot of attractive men and women because you're already committed to someone. And that's what comes with it. But I think with time, I have come to understand and appreciate the need for an exclusive long-term relationship. And to preempt a probable question from you, marriage for me, because I thought actually when I came here to speak to you that I would be talking about commitment, but then I'm not married and I'm in a long-term relationship. So does that mean my relationship is casual because it's not marriage? I'm not sure. For different people, commitment means different things. For some people, it's just marriage. For some people, it's long-term trust and loyalty and exclusiveness. And for some people, it's just honesty, openness, and you can do whatever you want as long as you're honest and open. So commitment also means different things to different people. So marriage for me is actually not mandatory. It's not something I'm averse to, but it's not a deal breaker for me. For me, the other values like loyalty, etc., are more important. And most relationships in the beginning are going to be casual anyway. So for all of you who are starting out on a relationship, that's not the time that you choose to be with each other forever and ever. That takes time. And then I think it has to be that the more time you spend together, you'll develop some bonds of affection. You know, you will have a fight, you will spend time together, you'll have great conversations, and that must at some point become something that is not casual. I don't understand people who are in long-term casual relationships. It doesn't make sense to me. It sounds as if you're like, I don't know if I believe in God or not. It's a decision that I feel I would have to take. I would feel that if I've spent enough time with someone, either I should say it's not working for me or it is working for me. And if it's working for me, I give it everything. And if it's not working for me, instead of dilly-dallying, I'll prefer to move on to something else. But again, that's me. But I have many friends who don't subscribe to that at all. And some of them are my closest friends. And some of them are women. And some of them are men. And if you mention the word marriage to them, they'll faint. Like, they just cannot handle that. Even a committed relationship is too much baggage for them. Because life today is, you know, there's so much that we want to do for ourselves. There's so much that we don't want to miss out on. So it's become a slightly self-centered generation where we don't want to compromise. We want our space. And, you know, there's so many things, like on Facebook, you can see people are just liking everything. So I think it's more of a like generation than a love generation. And as I said, with my friends, also I watch them sometimes, you know, on a Friday, my closest friend will call me and say, oh, I met this guy on Facebook, and, you know, I think he's going to ask me out this weekend. And then she'll come over to my house and say, oh, you know, on a Friday, and she'll say, well, you know, he texted me and he said, you know, let's go out on Friday night. And she'll come to my house and she'll get ready at my house, and we'll be ready from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and we're sitting and we're waiting by the phone. And then at 11 o'clock, her phone will beep and she'll get a text message saying, stop, or hey. And you're like, okay. And then you have to respond to that. So then she's like, what should I say? What should I say? And I'm like, oh, I'll say hey. And then we go from there, and then it takes an hour and a half. And he'll just say, okay, I'm hanging out at Air, I'm hanging out at some bar, and you want to meet me for a drink or whatever? I'm here with like a bunch of my friends. And you're like, that's not a date, according to me. And I would keep saying, why don't you just pick up the phone and ask him out for a date? Or why doesn't he just pick up the phone and ask you out for dinner or a drink? At least it should be one-on-one. Maybe I'm a traditionalist, I don't know. I'm pointing at Kunal because I'm expecting him to give me the hey, what's up kind of perspective. You know, what's behind the hey, what's up? I think that it's people who are scared. People who don't want to put themselves on the line, they're afraid of getting their heart broken, and they're afraid of rejection. Because if you pick up the phone and you say, do you want to have dinner with me? And if the girl says, no, I like Rahul, then you're like, I feel really bad. Or Rohit, whatever. So I think it's, people like that, it's a lot easier to just say, hey, or what's going on this weekend, and send it out to like 500 people, hoping that one person will respond, and then you take it from there. So, and there are many good things, like when I talk to my friends, and I say, why do you choose this kind of, we'd sit there and then she would cry, and then we'd stay up till 2 in the morning and eat ice cream and say, why do men suck? And then equally I sit with some of my guy friends and they say women are so complicated and, it's much better this way. And there's many pros to a casual sort of life. You can perhaps have many more options, which is always good. We all like options. We always want to latch on to the newest gizmo. Maybe, I have a BlackBerry from the 19th century. Stop hitting the mic. Sorry. So I have a phone from a very long time ago, so I don't necessarily need to maybe latch on to the latest thing. But I know that a lot of people appreciate that kind of, options and choices. I just get really confused, and I like not to get confused. Also, I think that people have a lot of baggage these days. So they think a lot about the past and their past relationships, and they bring that to bear to their future, and they just think, oh no, permanency and forever is just perhaps too much for me to handle. Love is very, very complicated, I understand that. I don't know whether I myself believe in forever or permanency. My mind, as I said, keeps changing. I like things to be fluid, but I also like to grow together with someone and explore it and see with a sincere commitment where it's going to go and for how long. And a slightly wiser, older female role model in my life once told me that you should not me, one should never actually marry the first person that they are intimate with. You know what I mean, right? That to me sounds totally unromantic. I said, but some people do, and it's great. And she said, well, actually it gets really complicated because love is this kind of weird chemical reaction. It's actually just about hormones. There's nothing else to it. And it's so fickle because you can be completely in love one day and completely out of love the next day. And that's got entirely to do with chemicals in your body. So the first time you're with someone in a romantic way, you can get confused. And sometimes you make these hormone-driven decisions and you may regret those. So she said that perhaps you should take your time, and then over time you will realize and be able to make a distinction between that kind of gooiness that you feel. And love is not just about the gooiness, it's about other things as well. And sometimes it's about the boring things that's left over after the gooiness. I should come up with another word. Give me a word. Mushiness, just as bad. After that goes away, it's kind of what you're left with, and you see the worst of each other, and you fought, and you've said, oh, and you've seen the worst of yourself, and you've broken all the crockery in the house, and you still, want to stay true to that person. I think that's a little bit more in the love space. That wasn't funny, was it? Anyway, so I'm going through this week, which is interesting discussion and answers. I'm most intrigued to know and also terrified to know what questions they're going to ask me, and I'm going to do my best to answer them because usually when I ask personal questions in the industry we say no comment, and I think this is going to be slightly different, and I would love to answer some of your questions. What I would like you to do is not be like me at all. You must be like yourself and listen to your own heart. Even though that sounds really trite, but you have to know for yourself when is the right time to commit. It's not always the right time to commit, whether it's the right person to commit to, and all of those things. And I'm pretty confident that all of the people in this room who haven't already figured that out will. I grew up seeing my parents who lived together and they were married for 42 years. And I'm sure that their root marital bliss was not, I'm sure they broke many items of crockery as well. And I think fighting is important because if you don't fight, that means that you don't care and there's no spirit in the relationship. So, of course, they had ups and downs and challenges. And again, one of the things that perhaps we'll touch upon is when you live in the public glare, how challenging it can be to be in a relationship, because it can be very difficult. When I started to date an actor, my mother said, I wouldn't do that because you're complicating your life. And I said, I can handle it. And it's not easy. It's very, very, very complicated. But it's also great fun, sometimes. But so I saw that it's possible for this to happen. Again, I'm saying it's not for everyone. I think the people who engage in casual relationships are skimming the surface. They're kind of floating on the surface. And I think that especially if you're a creative person, it's important to get stuck in. It's important to have your heart broken. It's important to feel the angst and feel that, you know, all those deep, dark emotions that sometimes you don't want to. Last year I thought I was going to be like Buddha-like. I was going to be Zen and no one was going to affect me, and my boyfriend was not going to affect me. If he lost his temper, I'm going to be calm. I'm going to do yoga. No one's going to get to me. It lasted, thank you. It lasted for half a weekend because then I lost it. And it's important to be in touch with your feelings. I think that's all well and good for Buddha and Zen people, but it doesn't work for me. And I felt like I wasn't able to act. I wasn't able to engage with my career as well. If you're a creative person, I think you have to feel all of that. You have to get involved. You can't be casual about, I mean, I'm wearing flip-flops, so I can be casual to a certain level. But, you know, I think when it comes to relationships, you can't be that casual. And I should sum up by saying I prefer to swim in the deep end of the pool. So I like to get stuck in. Thank you.